Apparently, when your brother texts, "Don't be mad, but your husband tried to bribe me," you're supposed to feel shocked. I just felt validated. Like finally, the universe was giving me permission to stop pretending my marriage wasn't a slow-motion car crash set to elevator music. My name is Cecily Grant. I'm 34 years old, and I've spent the last 9 years married to a pharmaceutical regional sales manager who thought business trips was code for building a second life while your wife handles literally everything else. We live in Raleigh, North Carolina. You know, that place where everyone drives a leased SUV and pretends their HOA isn't a suburban dictatorship. We have a 6-year-old son named Otto, a rescue dog who's more emotionally intelligent than my husband, and a joint checking account that I apparently should have been monitoring more closely. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to the text message that detonated my entire existence on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was at Target, because of course I was. Where else does a suburban mom go to process her feelings while buying things she doesn't need? When my phone buzzed. My brother Alaric. "Sis, call me when you're alone. It's about Hendrix." Now, Alaric doesn't text like that unless something's wrong. He's 31, manages a boutique hotel in Charlotte, and has exactly zero tolerance for drama, which made his message even more terrifying. I abandoned my cart in the home goods section and called him from my car. "Don't freak out," he started, which is what people say right before they tell you something that will absolutely make you freak out. "Alaric, what happened?" "I saw Hendrix yesterday, at my hotel." "Okay?" Hendrix traveled for work constantly. Him being at a hotel wasn't exactly breaking news. He wasn't alone. The way my stomach dropped could have registered on the Richter scale. He was with a girl, Cece. Early 20s, maybe 24, holding hands in the lobby. He paid for a premium suite. I saw the transaction. $400 a night. Then they got in the elevator and... He paused. They were kissing. I sat there in the Target parking lot, watching a woman load groceries into her trunk, living her normal, uncomplicated life, and felt something inside me just break. Not my heart. That would have required me to still be emotionally invested. No. What broke was the last remaining thread of the delusion I'd been clinging to that my husband was just busy, just stressed, just working hard for our family. "Cece? You still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." It gets worse. Of course it did. Hendrix saw me. He literally chased me into the parking lot and offered me $5,000 to not create unnecessary drama with Cecily because it's just for fun. Nothing serious. $5,000 to keep my own brother quiet about my husband's affair. The audacity alone deserved an award. "Did you take it?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "Are you insane? You're my sister." "But Cece," the girl looked like she could be in college. "And that suite? With what money is he dropping $400 a night on hotels?" "Excellent question." Alaric's voice was shaking when he told me the rest. "Sis, the girl looked maybe 23, 24 years old, and he paid for that suite like it was nothing, $400 a night. Where's that money coming from?" I thanked Alaric, promised him I'd handle it, and drove home in a fog. Hendrix wasn't due back from his business trip until Thursday, 2 days away, which gave me time to do something I hadn't done in probably 6 months. Actually, look at our joint checking account. I pulled it up on my laptop while Otto played with his toy trucks in the living room, blissfully unaware that his mother was about to discover financial infidelity on a scale that would make reality TV producers weep with joy. The first thing I noticed? Recurring monthly transfers to L. Morrison for $1,400 every month for 2 years. Then I scrolled deeper and deeper, and the hits just kept coming. Car insurance for a vehicle I'd never seen. A credit card I'd never authorized with monthly balances between $800 and $1,200. Weekly charges at expensive Charlotte restaurants. The same ones Hendrix used to take me to when we were dating, which felt like a particularly cruel touch. Hotel charges every week, sometimes twice a week. I made myself a drink. It was 3 in the afternoon, but I felt like the rules didn't apply anymore, and started documenting everything. I created a spreadsheet because I'm that person. Organized the charges by category: rent, housing, transportation, entertainment, dining, hotels, miscellaneous gifts. The running total made me nauseous. 2 years, $78,400, gone. From our joint account. The account we were supposed to be using to save for Otto's college fund. The account that was funding our future. Except apparently, Hendrix had a different future in mind. One that included a 24-year-old named Elle Morrison and a Charlotte apartment I was helping pay for without even knowing it existed. I sat there for a long time, staring at those numbers, feeling that special kind of rage that comes from being made to look stupid. Because that's what hurt the most. Not that he cheated, honestly. Marriages end, people fall out of love, life happens. But the financial betrayal? The systematic draining of our family resources to fund his midlife crisis in real time? That was the part that made me want to burn everything down. Otto came over and climbed into my lap, wrapping his little arms around my neck. "Mommy, why are you sad?" "I'm not sad, baby," I lied, kissing the top of his head. "Mommy's just thinking." "About what?" "About how your father is about to learn that revenge is a dish best served with comprehensive financial documentation and a level of pettiness he didn't know I was capable of. Just work stuff, sweetie. Nothing important." But it was important. It was possibly the most important thing I'd ever done. Because right then, sitting in our living room with my son in my lap and evidence of my husband's betrayal glowing on my laptop screen, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to do any of the dramatic things people do when they discover their spouse is living a double life. I was going to do something much worse. I was going to be strategic. The next morning, I dropped Otto at school with my best everything is fine smile plastered on my face. You know that face? The one suburban mom's perfect over years of pretending the HOA president isn't insufferable, and that we actually enjoy attending potlucks where everyone brings the same pasta salad. But inside? I was already 3 steps ahead. First stop, hiring a private investigator. Because sure, I could probably piece together Hendrix's affair through bank statements and amateur Facebook stalking, but why work harder when professionals exist? I found a firm in Durham with excellent reviews. Apparently, marital investigations are a thriving business in the Triangle area. Who knew suburban North Carolina was such a hotbed of infidelity? The investigator's name was Ramsey, a former cop who looked exactly like you'd expect someone in his profession to look, perpetually unimpressed by human behavior. I showed him everything: the bank statements, Alaric's testimony, screenshots of the mysterious Elle Morrison transactions. "How fast can you get me a complete picture?" I asked. 10 days for comprehensive surveillance, background checks, financial trails, the works. $2,000. I didn't even hesitate. Do it. And Ramsey? I need details. Every detail. Dates, times, locations, how long this has been going on, who she is, everything. You planning to use this in divorce court? I'm planning to use this to make sure my husband understands that underestimating me was the biggest mistake of his life. Ramsey almost smiled. Almost. While I waited for the investigation results, I went into full suburban spy mode. I became the wife Hendrix thought I'd always been. Supportive, unconcerning, perfectly content to believe his work trips were legitimate. I even packed his suitcase for his next conference in Charlotte, adding a sweet little note. "Miss you already. Otto and I love you so much." The performance deserved an Oscar. Hendrix came home Thursday evening, kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong, and spent the next few days playing devoted father. We went to Otto's soccer game Saturday morning, where Hendrix stood on the sidelines yelling encouragement, while I mentally calculated how much of his salary I'd be entitled to in the divorce settlement. Sunday, we had brunch at our favorite spot downtown. Hendrix held my hand across the table and talked about investing in our future and maybe taking a family vacation this summer. I smiled and nodded, thinking about the $78,000 he'd already invested in someone else's future. The cognitive dissonance was almost impressive. Monday morning, I did what any self-respecting woman gathering evidence would do. I logged into his personal laptop, the one he kept at home for personal emails alongside his work-issued computer. And bless his heart, the man hadn't even changed his password since we got married. Everything was right there, like he'd left me a treasure map to his own destruction. Email after email after email. 2 years worth of digital infidelity. Can't wait to see you this weekend, baby. Booked our usual spot. You make me feel alive in ways I haven't felt in years. Once I'm out of this marriage, we can finally start our real life together. And my personal favorite? I'm going to invest in your career once we're free. You deserve everything. Invest in her career. With my money. While I worked 50-hour weeks at my marketing job thinking we were building something together, the audacity was genuinely breathtaking. I took screenshots of everything, organized them chronologically in a folder labeled Tax Documents 2023, because Hendricks never looked at anything financial unless it involved his own paycheck. Then I printed copies, saved everything to a flash drive, and emailed the entire collection to my personal account. 10 business days later, on a Thursday afternoon, Ramsey called. Got your report. You're going to want to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I appreciated the warning. The full dossier arrived via encrypted email an hour later. Ramsey hadn't been kidding about comprehensive. Her name was Lila Morrison, 24 years old, former intern at the pharmaceutical lab where Hendricks worked as regional sales manager. They'd met during a training conference 2 years ago. The relationship started 4 months after she joined the company, which meant Hendricks had been grooming her while she was his intern. Absolutely no creepy power dynamics there. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Charlotte's South End. You know, that trendy area where 20-somethings pretend $1,400 rent is reasonable. Hendricks was listed as co-signer on the lease. He'd also co-signed her car loan for a used Honda Civic. She had a credit card in his name that she used for everything from groceries to boutique shopping to expensive brunches at the same restaurants we used to go to. The surveillance photos were particularly enlightening. Hendricks and Lila at dinner. Hendricks and Lila grocery shopping together like a couple planning their future. In one photo, she was wearing a necklace I recognized because I'd seen the charge on our credit card 3 months ago. Hendricks had told me it was a client gift. Apparently, his definition of client was more flexible than I'd realized. But here's the part that really sent me. The emails Ramsey had recovered showed Hendricks promising Lila he'd leave me once Otto was older, and that he was just waiting for the right time. He'd been telling her for 18 months that our marriage was basically over, and that he was only staying for appearances. Meanwhile, he'd been telling me we should think about having another baby. I sat in my home office, the one I decorated with family photos and motivational quotes about partnership, and felt something shift. Not heartbreak, not even anger, really. Just this cold, crystalline clarity about what needed to happen next. I spent the rest of the week building my case like I was preparing for trial. Created a master spreadsheet with every transaction, cross-referenced with Ramsey's surveillance dates, printed bank statements, organized emails chronologically. Made copies of everything and stored them in 3 separate locations: my office, a safety deposit box I opened at a different bank, and with my attorney. Right. That was the next step. The next day, I met with Patricia Ashford on Friday morning. She specialized in high-net-worth divorces and came highly recommended by a friend who'd divorced her husband after discovering he'd been embezzling from his own company. Patricia took one look at my documentation and actually whistled. "This is dissipation of marital assets," she said. "Textbook case. North Carolina allows us to argue that the spouse who wastes conjugal funds on extramarital affairs should receive less in the property division. How much less? With this level of documentation, I can argue for 60 to 65% of marital assets in your favor, plus primary custody, child support, and possibly alimony depending on income disparity." "Do it," Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed her job. "When do you want to serve him?" "Not yet. I have something else planned first. Because here's the thing about revenge. It's not enough to just win legally. Sometimes you need people to see exactly who they've been dealing with. And I had the perfect plan for that. Revenge, I've learned, is less about spontaneous combustion and more about strategic planning. Like organizing a really excellent dinner party, except instead of seating arrangements, you're orchestrating the complete destruction of someone's carefully constructed lies. The plan came to me that weekend, during Otto's bedtime routine on Saturday night. I was reading him his favorite book, something about dragons and knights, when it hit me. Hendrix always positioned himself as the hero in every story, the hard-working provider, the devoted father, the misunderstood husband trapped in a loveless marriage. What if everyone got to see the real story? Not just the legal version that would play out in divorce court, but the spectacular public implosion of his entire carefully curated image. I needed the perfect venue, somewhere public enough for maximum impact, but controlled enough that I could orchestrate every detail. And then it came to me. Dinner. A nice romantic dinner in Charlotte, exactly halfway between our home in Raleigh and Lila's apartment. I suggested it to Hendrix on Sunday afternoon, using my best neglected wife trying to reconnect voice. Honey, I've been thinking, what if we do something special this weekend? Drive to Charlotte, go to that steakhouse you love, make it a real date night? Hendrix looked almost relieved. That sounds great, babe. I'd love that. We do need to reconnect. The irony was so thick you could cut it with the steak knife he wouldn't be getting to use. I'll make a reservation for Saturday, I said sweetly. You just show up ready for a nice evening. I booked the restaurant for Saturday, March 23rd at 7 in the evening. Prime dinner hour, maximum witnesses. The restaurant was upscale but not pretentious. The kind of place where people go for special occasions and definitely notice when drama unfolds at nearby tables. But the dinner was only half the plan. The other half required significantly more creativity. 3 days before our scheduled dinner, I created a fake Instagram profile. Generic username, stolen profile photo from some fashion blogger in California, a few innocuous posts about coffee and sunsets. Nothing that would raise suspicion. Then I did my research. Lila Morrison's Instagram was surprisingly easy to find. Ramsey's report had included her social media handles, and the girl practically documented her entire life online. Her profile was public, filled with aesthetic photos of her apartment, her brunches, and conspicuously absent photos of her boyfriend. Because of course she couldn't post about Hendrix. He was still technically married and waiting for the right time. I studied her content for hours. Her schedule, her habits, her favorite spots in Charlotte. She posted everything: where she shopped, where she got her hair done, which coffee shop she frequented. It was like she'd created a surveillance manual for her own life. On Thursday evening, 48 hours before the dinner, I sent her a direct message from my fake account. You don't know me, but I think you're being lied to. The man you're seeing, Hendrix Grant, isn't separated. He's been married for 9 years. He has a 6-year-old son. He's not getting divorced. He's taking his wife to dinner this Saturday at 7 p.m. at restaurant name. You should see for yourself who he really is. I attached 3 photos. Our family Christmas card from last year, a recent vacation photo from the beach in July, and a screenshot of Hendrix's Facebook profile where his relationship status clearly said, married to Cecily Grant. Then I waited. The message showed as seen within 20 minutes. She didn't respond, but she didn't block me either, which meant she was at least considering the possibility that everything her boyfriend had told her was a lie. Perfect. The next 2 days were a masterclass in performance art. I played the excited wife, talking about our special dinner and how we never get time alone anymore. I bought a new dress, nothing too fancy, just nice enough that Hendrix would think I was making an effort. I even got my hair done Friday afternoon, telling the stylist I was trying to reignite the spark in my marriage. She gave me this sympathetic look that suggested she'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. But she made my hair look fantastic anyway. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that North Carolina does so well. Otto went to my parents' house for the night. I'd told them we were having a date night and they'd been thrilled. You two need this, my mom had said, hugging me goodbye. If only she knew. Hendrix was in an excellent mood during the drive to Charlotte, talking about work, asking about Otto's soccer season, reminiscing about our early dating days. Remember when we used to drive to Charlotte all the time? He said. Just to try new restaurants? I remember, I said, smiling. What I didn't say was, yeah, and apparently you've been recreating those memories with someone who wasn't born when we started dating. We arrived at the restaurant at 6:55. Perfect timing. Hendrix held my hand as we walked in, played the attentive husband while we ordered drinks. He was relaxed, happy, completely unaware that his entire life was about to detonate. I, on the other hand, was watching the door. 7:15. 7:30. I was starting to wonder if Lila had dismissed my message as some kind of elaborate prank when I saw her. She walked through the restaurant entrance at 7:40, scanning the dining room with the kind of determined expression that meant she'd definitely gotten my message and had definitely decided to investigate. She was pretty. That young, fresh-faced pretty that I'd probably been a decade ago before mortgage payments and parenting had rearranged my priorities. Her eyes found our table. Found Hendrix sitting across from me, holding my hand, completely at ease. The look on her face was almost worth the $78,000 he'd stolen from our future. She walked straight to our table. No hesitation. 24-year-old righteous fury in human form. "You told me you were divorced," she said, her voice shaking but loud enough that the three nearest tables definitely heard. "You said your marriage ended a year ago. You said you were just waiting to make it official." Every head in the restaurant turned toward us. Hendrix's face went from tan to white to purple in about 3 seconds. "Lila, this isn't... You shouldn't... You told me we had a future together." She was crying now, voice getting louder. "You said you loved me." I set down my wine glass very carefully and looked at my husband. "Hendrix, would you like to introduce me to your friend?" There's something beautifully surreal about watching your husband's mistress have a meltdown in the middle of an upscale steakhouse while you sip a $17 glass of Pinot Noir. Like dinner theater, except I didn't have to pay for the entertainment. Hendrix was doing that thing men do when they've been caught, trying to physically remove the problem. He grabbed Lila's arm, attempting to steer her toward the exit while simultaneously making calming gestures at me like I was a spooked horse. "Let's talk about this outside," he hissed at her. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" Lila yanked her arm away. "You've been lying to me for 2 years." I remained perfectly calm, which I could tell was throwing Hendrix completely off balance. He'd probably expected tears or rage, or some dramatic wife versus mistress confrontation. Instead, I gestured to the empty chair at our table. "Lila, right?" I said pleasantly. "Why don't you sit down? I think we should talk." She looked at me like I'd suggested we sacrifice a goat. "What?" "Sit. Please. I'd actually love to hear your side of this story." Hendrix's face was the color of a cardiac event. "Cecily, this isn't the time." "Oh, I think this is exactly the time," I said, pulling my phone from my purse. "In fact, let me show you both something interesting." I opened the Photos app and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created. Turned the phone so both of them could see it. "This is every dollar Hendrix has spent on you, Lila, for the past 24 months. It totals $78,400. Her eyes went wide. "What?" $1,400 a month for your apartment rent, $320 for your car payment, $800 to $1,200 monthly on that credit card he got for you. Then there's the hotels, the restaurants, the gifts." I scrolled through the itemized list slowly. "That necklace you're wearing right now? He bought it 3 months ago, for $600, from our joint checking account, the account I thought we were using to save for our son's college fund." The people at the next table weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. The woman was literally leaning toward us, fork suspended midair. "Our son?" I repeated, looking at Lila. "Otto. He's 6 years old. Just lost his first tooth last week. Loves dinosaurs and soccer. Thinks his daddy is a hero." Lila's face crumpled. "He told me you were divorced. He said the marriage ended years ago and you were just waiting to make it legal." "And you believed him?" I kept my voice gentle, almost sympathetic. "Honey, did you ever think to ask why a divorced man would still have a joint checking account with his ex-wife?" She looked at Hendrix, who'd apparently decided his best strategy was standing there like a malfunctioning robot. "You said, you promised." "I have emails too," I continued, pulling up the screenshots. 2 years worth. Want to see the one where he promises to invest in your career once you're together? Or the one where he says, "I don't understand him like you do"? I swiped through several examples. "Oh, here's a good one. Just a few more months and we can start our real life together." He sent that 5 months ago. And 3 months before that. And 6 months before that. I could see the exact moment reality crashed into Lila's carefully constructed fantasy. The realization that she wasn't the heroine in some romantic drama about true love conquering all. She was a plot device in a middle-aged man's ego crisis. "Here's what I don't understand," I said, looking at Hendrix now. "If our marriage was so over, why did you suggest 3 weeks ago that we should have another baby?" His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. "Or why did you book that beach house rental for this summer? Family vacation to Outer Banks. Otto's so excited." I haven't had the heart to tell him we're probably not going anymore. "Cecily, I can explain." "Can you?" I leaned back in my chair. "Because I'm genuinely curious how you explain stealing nearly $80,000 from your family to fund a relationship with someone who could be your daughter." "I'm 24, Lila said weakly. "Right, 24, which means you were 22 when this started. And Hendrix here was your supervisor at the pharmaceutical lab. Tell me, Lila, did he start grooming you while you were still an intern? Or did he wait until after you were hired full-time?" The color drained from both their faces. "Oh yes," I said. "I know all about the company's fraternization policies and their very strict rules about supervisors dating subordinates, especially former interns." I looked at Hendrix. "Does your regional manager know you've been in a 2-year relationship with someone you trained? Someone whose career advancement you directly controlled?" The silence was beautiful. Lila stood abruptly. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any of this." She was crying now, mascara tracking down her face. "You're a liar. You're a disgusting liar." She grabbed her purse and ran out of the restaurant, leaving behind a wake of whispers and at least 15 people with incredible stories to tell at their next dinner parties. Hendrix finally found his voice. "Cecily, please, we can work this out." "No," I said simply. "We really can't." I pulled a manila envelope from my purse. Yes, I'd brought a manila envelope to dinner, because I'm that petty, and slid it across the table. "Divorce papers, already filed. My attorney will be in touch Monday morning. The house is mine, as is primary custody of Otto. You'll be paying child support and likely alimony, though we both know you'll struggle with that now that you've drained our savings account." I stood, picked up my wine glass, and finished the last sip. "Oh, and Hendrix? The laboratory received an anonymous tip this week about your relationship with a former intern. HR is conducting an investigation. You might want to call your union rep." The drive home to Raleigh was the most peaceful 2 hours I'd had in years. Windows down, radio playing, phone full of documentation that would make Patricia Ashford's job remarkably easy. My phone buzzed just as I pulled into my driveway around 10:15. "Alaric. Sis, just heard through the hotel grapevine that your dinner made quite an impression. People are talking. Everything okay?" Me. "Everything is perfect. Tell you all about it tomorrow. Turns out revenge doesn't have to be a dish served cold. Sometimes it's best served in a steakhouse, medium rare, with witnesses." The divorce finalized 4 months later. Patricia had filed under North Carolina's adultery exception, which bypassed the usual 1-year separation requirement, on a Tuesday afternoon in July, which felt appropriately anticlimactic for the end of a 9-year marriage. Patricia Ashford had outdone herself. The judge took one look at my documentation of dissipation of marital assets and awarded me 65% of everything we'd accumulated. The house, the better car, most of the savings that Hendrix hadn't already burned through, and 70% custody of Otto. Hendrix now pays $1,800 monthly in child support, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in a complex with paper-thin walls, and drives a 7-year-old sedan that makes concerning noises. The pharmaceutical lab didn't fire him. HR investigations move slower than glacier melt. But they did strip him of his regional manager position. Turns out companies frown on supervisors having relationships with former interns half their age. Who knew? He's back to being a regular sales rep, making 30% less than before, which makes those child support payments particularly painful for him. I wish I could say I felt bad about it. I don't. What I do feel is lighter. Like someone removed a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. The first morning I woke up in my house, legally mine now, without Hendrix in it. I made coffee in complete silence and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this peaceful. Otto adjusted better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient in ways that terrify me. He sees Hendrix every other weekend and 2 evenings a week. Sometimes he asks why Daddy doesn't live here anymore, and I tell him the truth in 6-year-old terms. Daddy made some choices that hurt our family, but he still loves you very much. I don't mention the 24-year-old or the $78,000 or the spectacular public implosion at a Charlotte steakhouse. He'll learn about adult disappointment soon enough. Alaric never accepted Hendrix's $5,000 bribe, but I did pay for his vacation to Costa Rica last month. Called it a thank you for having integrity bonus. He protested, but I insisted. After all, without his initial phone call, I might have spent years longer living in willful ignorance while my husband drained our future into someone else's apartment. The restaurant story predictably became legendary in our social circle. I've had 3 friends confess they suspected their own partners of cheating and ask for Patricia's contact information. I've become the unofficial patron saint of strategic divorce, which wasn't on my career goals list, but I'm embracing it. Lila blocked Hendrix on everything, from what I heard through the inevitable gossip pipeline. She posted something on Instagram about learning that men who cheat with you will cheat on you, before deleting her entire account. I actually felt sorry for her briefly. Being 24 and realizing you wasted 2 years on someone's midlife crisis has to sting. Then I remembered she helped spend $78,000 of my son's college fund, and the sympathy evaporated pretty quickly. As for Hendrix, he tried the apology tour for about 6 weeks. Called, texted, showed up at the house wanting to talk about what went wrong. I finally told him, "What went wrong is you systematically stole from our family to fund a relationship with someone barely old enough to rent a car. We don't need to discuss this further. Call Patricia if you have legal questions. Otherwise, we communicate through the parenting app about Otto's schedule. That's it." He hasn't shown up uninvited since. Last week, Otto and I went to Target, full circle moment, and he asked if we could get ice cream after. We sat in the parking lot eating overpriced sundaes while he told me about his friend's birthday party and his new favorite dinosaur. And I realized something. This was enough. This simple, uncomplicated moment with my kid. No underlying tension, no wondering where my husband really was or what he was really doing. Just peace. People ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Not anymore. Anger requires emotional investment, and I've divested completely from Hendrix Grant. What I am is free. Free from the mental load of maintaining a marriage with someone who checked out years ago. Free from the financial manipulation. Free from playing detective in my own relationship. And honestly, I'm better at being single than Hendrix ever was at being subtle. The universe has a funny way of balancing things out. Hendrix wanted to feel young and exciting and appreciated by someone who didn't know all his flaws yet. Instead, he got public humiliation, professional consequences, and the rest of his life paying for the privilege of having been an absolute fool. Meanwhile, I got the house, my dignity, primary custody of our son, and the best story at every dinner party I'll attend for the rest of my life. Turns out divorce isn't an ending. Sometimes it's an upgrade.